question what the taxes is for, or the cost to reinforce the broke levy wall. Tell the boss he shouldn't be the boss.
That is Dollar Day by Mos Def. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting on over 800 stations, on NPR and Pacifica stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations, and on both TV satellite networks, Dish Network Channel 9415, Free Speech TV, 9410 Link TV, and on DirecTV Channel 375. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Our headlines are also available in Spanish for any radio station to take as over 250 are. Our guest is Florida Congressmember Alan Grayson. He has introduced a Medicare for All bill, though he is supporting the current legislation around health care in Congress, though he wishes it were different. But I want to ask you another question, Congressman Grayson, and it's about ACORN. The federal judge reaffirming her earlier ruling blocking the congressional effort to defund the anti-poverty group ACORN. Last week, Judge Nina Gershon cemented her decision from last year that such action amounted to an unconstitutional bill of attainder. Judge Gershon has asked all federal agencies to allow ACORN funding without delay. You have been a big supporter of ACORN. What do you think of what happened to it and why it happened?
Well, I think the Republicans systematically destroyed it because ACORN was registering voters that tended to vote Democrat. It's that simple. They picked them out, they singled them out, not because of whatever they thought that they were doing. They picked them out because they actually were effective in getting people who didn't ordinarily have the chance to vote to vote. In my district alone, ACORN registered tens of thousands of people and caused those people to have a chance to participate in the political process that they never had before. And this infuriated the Republicans, so they destroyed ACORN.
And Congressman Grayson, I want to ask you finally about U.S. policy toward Israel. Vice President Biden was in Israel last week. Do you think he was blindsided? Secretary of State Hillary Clinton basically appeared on Meet the Press and said Israel's response while he was there, the announcement of building 1,600 new homes in a settlement in East Jerusalem was, quote, insulting. White House senior advisor David Axelrod described Israel's actions as very, very destructive. What's your response?
I think that it's obvious at this point that the president wasn't given adequate warning about a change in Israeli policy that he very much would have wanted to know about before the trip took place.
And do you think he should have been told? Do you think that Israel should be building these houses at all?
Well, that's a different question. But I do think that if the vice president is going to make an unusual trip to Israel, he needs to know what's going to be happening on the ground before he goes there. It's fair to say that he needs to know what's going to be in the news regarding the peace situation in Israel when he's heading to Israel. That's a fair request on our part, and that's why the administration reacted the way it did.
I think Israel was wrong to announce this and to build them at all. You know, it's been a debate about timing.
Well, that's a very controversial subject.
Right. It's been a debate about, you know, the timing of the announcement. But do you think they're wrong to do it altogether?
If you're talking about areas in East Jerusalem, I don't think it's really conceivable that the Israelis will ever give up that land. I just don't think that's plausible. If you're talking about areas like Ariel, areas elsewhere on the West Bank, I think that that's much more debatable. One could easily conceive of a two-state solution that allows Israel very little of that land. Even the Israelis' own maps that were presented at Taba provided that only a tiny fraction of that land would end up in Israeli hands. For building outside of those areas, that seems to be unduly provocative. For building in an area that Israel's going to end up with anyway, under any conceivable form of peace, you know, that's much less harmful.
And the Palestinian demand supported by the U.S. that East Jerusalem would be a future capital of a future Palestinian state?
Well, I think any country, if Palestine becomes a country, is permitted to put its capital anywhere within its own area. I don't think, I mean, you know, Israel's been vehement about the fact that it is allowed to choose its capital. I've supported Israel's right to choose its capital in the area that it wants. Any country can locate its capital wherever it wants within its land. And that includes a future Palestinian state.
Congressman Alan Grayson, we thank you for being with us, Democrat of Florida. We're going to stay on the issue of the Middle East with our next guest. Anjali?
The United States has affirmed its, quote, unshakable and unbreakable bond with Israel just days after Israel's ambassador in Washington said ties between the allies were at their lowest point in 35 years. On Tuesday, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and White House spokesman Robert Gibbs softened their tone toward Israel.
The President was in Israel to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to the security of Israel and its people. As I said earlier, mature bilateral relationships can have disagreements, and this is one of those disagreements. It does not break the unbreakable bond that we have with the Israeli government and with the Israeli people on their security.
In an interview in Meet the Press this Sunday, Clinton had been sharply critical of Israel's announcement that it would build 1,600 new homes in the Jewish settlement of Ramat Shlomo, coming as it did during Vice President Joseph Biden's visit to the country.
It was not just an unfortunate incident of timing, but the substance was, something that is not needed as we are attempting to move toward the resumption of negotiations. It was insulting, and it was insulting not just to the vice president, who certainly didn't deserve that. He was there with a very clear message of commitment to the peace process, solidarity with the Israeli people, but it was an insult to the United States.
Despite the strong words from high-level American officials, Israel's response has been to apologize over the unfortunate timing of the announcement, but refused to back down on settlement construction. Earlier this week, Netanyahu reiterated that, quote, building everywhere in Jerusalem will continue as it has over the past 42 years.
Well, the pro-Israeli lobby has criticized the Obama administration for toughening its stance on Israel, but there's another powerful lobby that seems to have a different opinion, the U.S. military. Veteran military and foreign affairs analyst and author Mark Perry reports at foreignpolicy.com that CENTCOM Commander General David Petraeus is concerned America's policy on Israel might be jeopardizing U.S. security interests in the region. Perry's piece is called The Petraeus Briefing, Biden's Embarrassment is Not the Whole Story. He's also author of the new book, Talking to Terrorists, Why America Must Engage with Its Enemies. Mark Perry joins us now from Washington, D.C. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Mark Perry. Start off by explaining what exactly General Petraeus sent to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What is his stand?
General Petraeus sent a briefing team to talk to Admiral Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to give Admiral Mullen a briefing on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the facts of the conflict. But it was also clear from the briefing that this was a central concern among David Petraeus's area of responsibility, the 22 Arab nations of the Central Command, and that in his travels throughout the region, the leaders of these countries had made it clear to General Petraeus the greater the Israeli intransigence on resolving the conflict with the Palestinians, the greater the erosion in American security. It was quite a blunt briefing.
How do you know that this briefing took place?
Because I talked to the people in the Pentagon who know about the briefing. And in fact, General Petraeus yesterday didn't take issue with it. When he made his comments in public on the Senate Armed Services Committee, his first action item in his prepared remarks was the effect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on his area of responsibility. And he made it very clear that without progress on this issue, it was going to remain a problem in his area of responsibilities. He made that very clear in his testimony.
Yes, Mark Perry, at the Senate panel hearing yesterday, General Petraeus brought up Israeli-Palestinian tensions, and he said, quote, I believe the conflict foments anti-American sentiment due to a perception of U.S. favoritism of Israel. Arab anger over the Palestinian question limits the strength and depth of U.S. partnerships with governments and peoples. But I wanted to play a clip from that hearing. In response to a question from Senator John McCain, he also denied having made a request to include Israel in the Palestinian territories under his command at CENTCOM.
Neither Israel nor the Palestinian territories are in the Central Command area of responsibility.
But yours is all of
Having said that, we keep a very close eye on what goes on there because of the impact that it has, obviously, on that part of CENTCOM that is the Arab world, if you will. And, in fact, we've urged at various times that this is a critical component. It's one reason, again, we invite Senator Mitchell to brief all of the different conferences that we host and seek to support him in any way that we can when he's in the Central Command part of the region, just as we support Lieutenant General Dayton, who is supporting the training of the Palestinian security forces